Have you ever wondered why some people, despite their charisma and charm, end up entangled and tangled in chaos of their own making? Stay with me, because today we'll uncover the 10 things that life, or perhaps something greater, always brings to those who walk the path of narcissism. By the end, you'll see not only how justice unfolds, but why it's a lesson for all of us. Truth is a force that is as relentless as it is uncompromising. It is not a convenience that bends to our whims or a tool that can be wielded selectively without consequence. Narcissists, in their arrogance, construct a world of lies and illusions, believing that they can outmaneuver the truth itself. But the reality is this: no matter how elaborate the deception, no matter how skilled the manipulator, the truth waits patiently. And when it arrives, it does so with an unyielding precision that leaves no room for denial. It exposes what was hidden, dismantles what was fabricated, and reveals the stark reality beneath. Narcissists build their lives like a house of cards, each lie supporting the next, each manipulation carefully placed to maintain the structure. They believe they can control the narrative, dictate how others see them, and escape the natural consequences of their actions. And for a while it seems to work. They charm, they persuade, they intimidate, they convince others and perhaps even themselves that their version of reality is the only one that exists. But deep down they know that the foundation is unstable, that every lie adds weight to the eventual collapse. The truth isn't something they can eliminate, it's something they're merely postponing. And postponing the truth is like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that each step forward leads to an inevitable fall. The moment of reckoning, when it comes, is often abrupt but not entirely unexpected. It is the culmination of all the small betrayals, all the concealed motives, and all the simplicity and all the selfish choices that seemed inconsequential in the moment. It is the unveiling of their true self, not the self they want others to see, but the self they've worked so hard to hide. And that unveiling, it's devastating, not just for the narcissist, but for everyone around them. Because the truth doesn't just expose the lies, it shatters the trust that others placed in them. It leaves behind a trail of broken relationships, disillusioned allies, and a reputation that can't be repaired by mere words. And yet narcissists rarely see it coming. They're so caught up in their own web of deceit that they believe they're invincible. They believe they're smarter, more cunning, more capable of navigating the complexities of life than anyone else. They underestimate the quiet power of the truth. They dismiss it as something they can manage, control, or suppress. But the truth is not something that can be managed. It is not a game to be won or lost. It is a reality that exists independently of their perception, and when it comes to light, it is unrelenting. It does not compromise, it does not negotiate, and it does not show mercy. This is why the collapse of a narcissist world is so profound, because it's not just the lies that are exposed, it's the person behind them. The truth reveals their weaknesses, their fears, their insecurities. It lays bare the motives that drove their actions, the selfishness that defined their choices, and the emptiness that fueled their need for validation. It strips away the facade and leaves them vulnerable in a way they've never experienced before. And that vulnerability, it's terrifying, because for the first time they're confronted with a reality they can't manipulate, a situation they can't control, and a consequence they can't escape. But the truth doesn't just stop there. It ripples outward, affecting everyone who is caught in the narcissist's orbit. It forces others to confront their own complicity, to question their own beliefs, and to reevaluate their relationships. It's a painful process, but it's also a necessary one, because the truth, as harsh as it may be, is also liberating. It frees people from the illusions that kept them trapped, as it allows them to see the narcissist for who they truly are, and it gives them the clarity to make choices that align with reality rather than fantasy. And here's the thing, the truth doesn't care about appearances. It doesn't care about power, status, or influence. It doesn't care how many people the narcissist has deceived or how long they've gotten away with it. It is indifferent to their schemes and unmoved by their charisma. The truth is simply what is. And when it comes into the light, it obliterates anything that stands in its way. It is a force of nature, as relentless as the tides and as certain as the sunrise. It may take time, it may be delayed, but it is inevitable. And when it arrives, it changes everything. Humility, on the other hand, is a lesson that life teaches with a firm hand. For the narcissist, humility is not a choice but an inevitability. It is the natural consequence of their arrogance, a reality that confronts them when their inflated sense of self collides with the harshness of the world. Life has a way of breaking down the walls of entitlement, of dismantling the illusions of superiority, and of reminding us all that we are ultimately fallible human beings. For the narcissist, this lesson is particularly difficult because it challenges the very core of their identity. Arrogance is seductive. It's the belief that we are better, smarter, more deserving than others. It's the illusion of invincibility, the idea that the rules don't apply to us, that we are somehow exempt from the limitations and vulnerabilities that define the human condition. For the narcissist, this arrogance is not just a trait, it's a defense mechanism. It's how they cope with their insecurities, how they protect themselves from the pain of inadequacy, and how they justify their actions, no matter how harmful they may be. But life doesn't care about their justifications. Life doesn't validate their sense of superiority. Instead, it challenges it, confronts it, and ultimately dismantles it. The process is not gentle. It's not a quiet whisper or a subtle nudge. It's a crash, a collision, a moment of undeniable clarity that forces the narcissist to confront the truth about themselves. It's the realization that they are not above others, that their actions have consequences, and that their arrogance is not a shield but a weakness. And that realization, it's painful. Because it's not just about losing the illusion of superiority, it's about facing the reality of who they truly are. It's about acknowledging their flaws, their mistakes, and their humanity. Humility is not an easy lesson. It requires a level of self-awareness that narcissists often lack. It demands that they look inward, that they question their motives, and that they take responsibility for their actions. It's a process of unlearning the lies they've told themselves, of breaking down the walls they've built, and of embracing the vulnerability they've tried so hard to avoid. And that is terrifying. Because for the narcissist, vulnerability is not just uncomfortable, it's unbearable. It's a threat to their identity, a challenge to their worldview, and a reminder of everything they've tried to suppress. But life doesn't give them a choice. Life doesn't allow them to remain in their arrogance forever. It presents them with situations that force them to confront their limitations, to acknowledge their mistakes, and to experience the consequences of their actions. It humbles them not out of malice, but out of necessity. Because humility is not just a lesson, it's a prerequisite for growth. It's what allows us to learn, to adapt, and to become better versions of ourselves. For the narcissist, it's a painful process, but it's also a transformative one. It's the moment when they begin to see the world and themselves as they truly are. The question, of course, is whether they will embrace that transformation. Will they accept the lessons that life is teaching them? Or will they resist, clinging to their arrogance and denying the reality of their situation? That is the choice they must make. But one thing is certain, life will not let them escape the lesson of humility. It will continue to challenge them, to confront them, and to push them toward a deeper understanding of themselves. And in the end, whether they like it or not, they will learn. Because life doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't wait for readiness, it simply is. Relationships are the foundation of human existence. They're what give life meaning, what connect us to something beyond ourselves. They're built on trust, mutual respect, and shared vulnerability. But for the narcissist, relationships are something entirely different. They're not about connection or mutual growth, they're about control. They're tools, mechanisms used to extract validation, admiration, and power. To the narcissist, people are not partners or equals, they are resources, instruments to be exploited. And yet, despite their skill at manipulation, there is a truth they cannot escape. Relationships built on deceit and selfishness cannot last. They may seem strong, but beneath the surface, they are fragile. Time, as always, reveals the cracks. The narcissist's isolation is not immediate. It's a slow process, one that unfolds over weeks, months, even years. At first, they're surrounded by people, friends, family, colleagues drawn to their charisma and confidence. They're skilled at creating an image of success, of charm, of being someone worth admiring. And people want to believe in that image. They're drawn to the illusion, to the idea that they've found someone exceptional, someone extraordinary. But illusions can only last so long. As time passes, the cracks begin to show. The manipulations become more apparent. The lies start to unravel. The selfishness becomes harder to ignore. And the people who were once drawn to the narcissist begin to pull away. What's tragic and perhaps poetic is that the narcissist rarely notices this process until it's too late. They're so focused on their own needs, so consumed by their own desires, that they fail to see the damage they're causing. They don't notice the trust they've broken, the pain they've inflicted, or the relationships they've destroyed. And when they do notice, it's often from a place of resentment rather than reflection. They blame others for pulling away, for failing to meet their expectations, for not being loyal enough or giving enough. They see themselves as the victim, never the perpetrator. But the truth is, these relationships require reciprocity. They require honesty, empathy, and a willingness to give as much as you take. And the narcissist, by their very nature, is incapable of that. They can fake it, of course. They can play the role of the caring friend, the devoted partner, the supportive colleague, but it's an act, and eventually the act falls apart. People begin to see the truth. They see the manipulation, the deceit, the selfishness. And they leave. They protect themselves as they should. They walk away, choosing their own well-being over a relationship that was never real to begin with. The narcissist's isolation is both self-inflicted and inevitable. It's the result of their own actions, their own choices. They push people away, whether they realize it or not. They alienate the very people they depend on for validation and support. And in the end, they find themselves alone with their thoughts, their insecurities, their emptiness, alone in a way that is profound and deeply unsettling. Because for the narcissist, isolation is not just a physical reality, it's an existential one. It's a confrontation with the self, a mirror held up to their own behavior, their own flaws, their own humanity. And that is a reality they cannot manipulate or escape. Time is relentless. It's an impartial witness to everything we do, everything we say, everything we are. And it has a way of revealing truths that we might prefer to keep hidden. For the narcissist, time is both an enemy and a judge. It exposes them in ways they cannot anticipate, in ways they cannot control. No matter how carefully they construct their facade, no matter how skillfully they manipulate those around them, time eventually reveals the truth. And when it does, the consequences are undeniable. The exposure of a narcissist is rarely a single dramatic event. It's more often a series of moments, a gradual unveiling that becomes impossible to ignore. It's the realization of a friend who finally sees the patterns of manipulation. It's the awakening of a partner who recognizes the lies for what they are. It's the clarity of a colleague who understands the true motives behind the narcissist's actions. These moments accumulate, building on each other until the truth is undeniable. And once it's seen, it cannot be unseen. The narcissist is exposed not just to others, but to themselves. What's remarkable is the narcissist's inability to see this coming. They're so confident in their ability to deceive, so assured in their own intelligence, that they underestimate the power of time. They believe they can outsmart it, but they can control the narrative indefinitely. But time is not something that can be manipulated. It's not a game that can be won. It is simply what it is, and it has a way of leveling the playing field, of bringing the truth to light in ways that are both subtle and profound. Exposure is devastating. It's the collapse of the facade, the unraveling of the illusion. It's the moment when the narcissist's carefully constructed world falls apart. And with that collapse comes a reckoning. A reckoning with their own actions, their own choices, their own reality. They're forced to confront the truth, not just about how others see them, but about who they really are. And that truth, it's not something they can run from. It's not something they can deny. It's there, staring them in the face, undeniable and unrelenting. But the exposure doesn't just affect the narcissist, it affects everyone around them. It's a moment of clarity for those who were deceived, a chance to see the narcissist for who they truly are. It's an opportunity to break free from the manipulation, to reclaim their own sense of reality, their own sense of self. And that is powerful. Because while the narcissist's exposure is a moment of reckoning for them, it's also a moment of liberation for others. It's a chance to move forward, to rebuild, to create something authentic and real. Time's exposure is not immediate, but it is inevitable. It is the great equalizer, the force that reveals what is hidden and dismantles what is false. For the narcissist, it is both a punishment and a lesson. A reminder that no one, no matter how cunning or manipulative, can escape the truth forever. And for those who have been affected by the narcissist's actions, it is a moment of clarity, a chance to see the world and themselves as they truly are. Because time, as relentless as it may be, is also a teacher. And its lessons, though often harsh, are necessary. Consequences are inevitable. Every action we take, every decision we make leaves a mark on ourselves, on others, and on the world around us. For the narcissist, this truth is an unbearable one. They've built their lives around the illusion that they can escape the natural order of cause and effect, that they can manipulate reality to suit their desires without ever paying the price. But life doesn't work that way. No matter how clever they are, no matter how deeply they believe in their own invincibility, the consequences of their actions eventually catch up with them. And when they do, is often with a force that is both devastating and unavoidable. Narcissists thrive on control. They manipulate, they deceive, they dominate. They orchestrate their lives as though they are the conductors of a grand symphony, believing they can dictate how each note will play out. And for a time it seems to work. They wield their charm, their intellect, their power, and they bend others to their will. But this control is an illusion. It's temporary, fragile, and fundamentally flawed. Because no one, not even the most cunning manipulator, can control the ripple effects of their actions. Each lie told, each trust betrayed, each selfish decision made, it all sets in motion a series of events that cannot be undone. And those ripples over time grow into waves that crash back with relentless force. The consequences are not immediate. They unfold gradually, often unnoticed by the narcissist until it's too late. It's the friend who quietly distances themselves after too many broken promises. It's the partner who begins to question their own worth in the face of constant emotional neglect. It's the colleague who decides that loyalty to the narcissist is no longer worth the cost. These small moments accumulate, layer upon layer, until the narcissist finds themselves surrounded by the wreckage of their own making. And in that moment, they're forced to confront a truth they've long denied. Their actions have consequences, and those consequences are inescapable. What makes this reckoning so profound is not just the external fallout, the lost relationships, the damaged reputation, the isolation. It's the internal confrontation that is perhaps the most painful. The narcissist, for all their bravado and self-assurance, is deeply fragile. Their identity is built on a foundation of lies and illusions, and when that foundation is shaken, it threatens to collapse entirely. They're forced to face their own vulnerability, their own humanity, in a way they've spent their entire lives avoiding. And that is a kind of pain that is difficult to describe. It's the pain of seeing oneself clearly, of recognizing the harm one has caused, of realizing that the world is not as easily controlled as they once believed. And yet, this confrontation with consequences, as painful as it is, holds within it the potential for something extraordinary. It holds the potential for redemption. Redemption is not an easy path, nor is it one that comes naturally to the narcissist. It requires a level of humility, of self-awareness, of genuine accountability that is profoundly uncomfortable for someone who has spent their life avoiding those very things. But it is possible. It begins with a choice to stop running from the truth, to stop blaming others, to stop clinging to the illusions of superiority and control. It begins with the willingness to look inward, to face the pain, and to take responsibility for the harm caused. Redemption is not about erasing the past. It's not about pretending that the damage never happened or that the pain inflicted can simply be forgotten. It's about acknowledging that past fully and without reservation. It's about owning the mistakes, the failures, the selfishness, and it's about taking deliberate, meaningful steps to make amends. For the narcissist, this is an almost Herculean task. It requires them to let go of the very identity they've clung to for so long, to embrace a new way of being that is rooted in honesty, empathy, and accountability. It's a process that is neither quick nor easy, but it is one that is profoundly transformative. What's remarkable is the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for growth, for change, for renewal. Even the narcissist, as deeply entrenched as they are in their patterns of behavior, is not beyond the reach of redemption. They have the capacity to change, to grow, to become something more than they were. But that capacity is contingent on one thing: the willingness to try, the willingness to face the truth, to endure the pain of self-confrontation, and to take responsibility for their actions. Without that willingness, redemption remains out of reach, but with it, the possibilities are extraordinary. The path of redemption is not one that the narcissist can walk alone. It requires the support, the patience, and the forgiveness of others, and that is perhaps the greatest challenge of all. Because forgiveness is not something that can be demanded or expected. It is something that must be earned. It's a gift freely given that comes only after genuine effort and meaningful change. For the narcissist, earning that forgiveness means demonstrating through actions, not just words, that they are committed to a new way of being. It means rebuilding trust one step at a time. It means listening, empathizing, and putting the needs of others before their own. It means showing day after day that they are no longer the person they once were. This process is not linear. It's messy, filled with setbacks and challenges. There will be moments of doubt, moments of frustration, moments when the old patterns of behavior seem easier than the difficult work of change. But each step forward, no matter how small, is a step towards something greater. It's a step toward authenticity, toward connection, toward a life that is no longer defined by manipulation and deceit. And that is worth every ounce of effort, every moment of discomfort, every tear shed along the way. The consequences of a narcissist's actions are unavoidable, but they are not the end of the story. They are a turning point, a moment of reckoning that holds within it the seeds of transformation. For those willing to confront the truth, to endure the pain, and to take responsibility, there is a path forward. It is a path of redemption, of renewal, of becoming something more. And while that path is not easy, it is one that leads to a life of meaning, connection, and genuine fulfillment.